This podcast contains explicit language and is for mature audiences only. If you're under 18, this show is intended more for your parents.
So, take that mental image with you and get back to doing your homework. We are a couple choosing to share our personal experiences and opinions that should in no way be misconstrued as professional advice.
Okay, welcome back. I'm Mr. Jones.
And I'm Mrs. Jones, and we want to welcome you to episode 3 of the We Got a Thing podcast. The title of this month's podcast is Jealousy, What's Up With That?
What is up with that? We invite you to spend the next hour or so with us as we share about our adventures in the swinging lifestyle and discuss topics centered around sex-positive and open-minded relationships. So tonight we're going to start talking about in segment 1, what's been going on with the Joneses, and it's the almost Christmas time. So we hope to put this podcast out before the last week of December. So this will be December 2014. And we've had a few things going on in our world the past month or so since we last published. This was Thanksgiving weekend that we went.
Yep, it was the weekend after Thanksgiving. We met a couple that's fairly local. We had met them before and spent time with them one other time before, but we had made plans to spend the evening and an overnight with them. So we ended up meeting them at a winery kind of halfway between each of our homes and spent the afternoon doing some wine tasting, and we brought along a little picnic, so we had some cheese and crackers and shared a couple bottles of wine together, and it was just a really fun afternoon.
Right. Yeah, it was a nice day. And then we came back here to the house and had dinner for 4. I believe we cooked out and had a nice relaxing dinner. And then after dinner, we got out a game. We did a little bit of an icebreaker. What was Oh, you had it on your phone.
I found an app.
Yeah.
It was called Wheel of Foreplay. It's an awesome app. We were going to do the typical truth or dare game, but like our truth or dare game, it's a good game, but the dare cards involve a whole lot of work, and a lot of times it's like in a different room, and you got to get all these supplies together, and it's just really a commitment. And we just really wanted to have more of a conversation icebreaker kind of starter thing. So I was like desperately looking around to see what I could find, and I went to the good old app store and found this Wheel of Foreplay game, and it's kind of like Spin the Bottle, but it's really cool because you can actually like put your names in there. So it says, this person's gonna do this to that person.
Oh, right,
and it's pretty cool. You can say whether you want just like girl on guy and guy on girl action, or do you want some girl on girl action too? So there's like a lot of variables that you can set up in there.
And did we do this in the bedroom, or did we do this?
Yeah, we came upstairs to our bedroom.
But before that, you remember she brought a change of clothes.
Yes.
Yeah, so you all had, so when we came back from the winery, you all looked very sexy at the winery, but that was like public clothing. And then we came home and you both changed into like dinner cocktail. No, it wasn't. What? I don't even remember what you all had on, but
it wasn't a lot.
Right. So
like little dresses, little club dresses.
Right. And then before we came upstairs, you all changed again into lingerie. Right. Yeah. So the 4 of us had gone into the bedroom and we were playing the wheel of what?
Wheel of Foreplay.
Wheel of Foreplay.
What else would it be called?
Yeah, so it would tell you by name, Mr. Jones, you need to do this with the woman, or Mrs. Jones, you need to do this with the man, or Mr. Jones, you do this with Mrs. Jones, and we had been with this couple once before, so this was really a fun way, especially after an afternoon of wine drinking, and gosh, I don't even remember what we had to drink with dinner, but by this time, I think we were pretty much primed. So yes. the Wheel of Foreplay was a good icebreaker. So
way to get the ball rolling.
Yeah. So good endorsement of that app. And then we ended up playing with them, and I don't recall, we kind of just did soft swap and...
Just did soft swap. Man, has your perspective changed over the last year?
I know. It's starting to sound a little bit routine.
The horror of it. No, we started out, we were playing the game, and everybody was kind of interacting with everybody according to the instructions, because you had to follow the rules of the game.
You got ripped off.
I did.
Yeah,
I started pouting a little bit.
Yeah, your name didn't come up very much. And so you were very vocal because it was your idea, and you downloaded the game. It was my game.
It was my phone.
Yeah, and your name wasn't coming up. So before you got too frustrated, I think we moved to the bed and played a little bit with them and had a really good time.
Well, I think she felt sorry for me. So once my name came up, and I don't even remember what the app said that she had to do, but I know she and I ended up on the bed, and then that made it all better.
Yes, it did.
I stopped pouting quickly.
Yeah, and that's the first time, I think last few times we've had couples over, we've put an arrow bed on the floor in an extra bedroom, and this time we decided to get a little bit higher up off the ground and went to the master bedroom. So that was a little bit different this time, but I think that worked out better.
Well, it did because it was cold, and we have a fireplace in our bedroom.
Oh, right.
So, there were no excuses for...
That's right.
Yeah, shedding
it's
clothes.
Coming back to me now.
Yeah.
Right. It got pretty hot in there pretty quickly.
Yeah, we actually had to turn the fireplace off. There was a lot of body heat.
Yeah, so we played for a while, and they ended up staying overnight and leaving the next morning. So that was a lot of fun. And then we went out last night. And for those of you who have been listening, you know that we started intentionally not seeing couples that lived in our local area. But now we've evolved to the point where we're a little bit more bold and a little bit more confident. And so we met a local couple for the first time we went out on a 4-way 2 couples date last night at a local restaurant. And
of course, when we walk in the door of the restaurant, we got there before they did. And so we went ahead and put our name on the list. And as soon as we got our beeper and kind of the restaurant was really crowded. Of course, the weekend before Christmas, everybody's out shopping, and this restaurant was near one of the big shopping malls near us. So we were trying to kind of a way to, jockey into position where we were out of the way, but could still see the door for when our friends came in. And of course, who do we see? A couple from our church. So it's like, oh man, the first time we get brave enough to try something, in our community.
Yeah.
We end up, of course, running into somebody we know. So
yeah, well,
but it was fine.
Yeah, it was fine. Yeah.
But it makes you feel weird. Like, please don't know what I'm up to.
Yeah. Well, you looked pretty sexy, so they may have been wondering.
Oh, I have my coat on still.
Oh,
it was all good.
Did.
I had a scarf wrapped around my neck. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and our friends were a little bit late, so it worked out perfectly. But anyway, we had a good time last night and met with them and possibly see them again in the future. So, and there's a couple other couples that have contacted us locally that I think over the next few weeks we might try to get out and meet and have drinks with at least.
Yeah, we're finding that there is somewhat of a network in our community, and the couple that we had dinner with last night, they've kind of been at this for a while, and they started out the same way. They said that they would always be going, up into the city to meet people, which is about an hour away minimum. And so they finally got tired of doing that, because it really, when you have to travel an hour or more to meet a couple, and then, even if you're just having dinner with them, you want to have a bottle of wine with dinner, and then, you're drinking, and then you have a long drive home, and you got to make sure that you didn't, drink too much before you actually had something to eat so that you can, drive responsibly. It's a lot of planning and a lot of work to do that. So gosh, if we could really find a way to do this locally within 15 minutes of the house instead of over an hour from the house, it would be so much more convenient, and you'd actually be able to kind of maybe do things on a Wednesday night every now and then.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and you don't have to plan a big dinner. You can just meet locally for drinks at the local bar or the brewery, or even at each other's homes. But, the way the weekends are with vanilla things and family going on, it does open up a lot of opportunities. So I think we'll probably do that again.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. And it happened to be close enough to my birthday that we just called it, I got to spend the birthday with another couple. So
yeah, I said, hey, Mr. Jones, like, what do you want for your birthday? And he said, don't you mean who do I want for my birthday? And
let's get that straightened out now. Yeah, so that's what we've been up to. We'll talk about what we have coming up in a bit.
So the main topic we wanted to talk about tonight is we want to kind of reflect back on the beginning of our journey and talk about how we had some emotions to process, especially after our first trip to Desire and our first time swapping and just a couple things that happened which you wouldn't really expect to be triggers for any kind of emotion, but
right.
Just stuff we had to work through.
Right. And so episode 2 was a lot of fun. We talked about Desire and we talked about the people that we played with, and it was really kind of a fun podcast. This one's a little bit more serious, but, jealousy is something that when you mention that word, people kind of just, their ears perk up and they want to know, well, what was that all about and what happened and how did you get through that? So we thought that we would just try to hit that head on. So how do we want to start this story?
Well, I guess we kind of need to talk about, really how we ended up not communicating well enough with one another when we met this couple at Desire the first time and we started playing with them. I think we were a little overconfident on what we could handle. Right.
So we talked before we went on vacation, but this was our very, very first experience at Desire in a lifestyle setting, and we thought we had talked about a lot, and we did talk about a lot, but I think you're right. When we got there, we hadn't perfected the skill of kind of checking in with each other and taking a pause and trying to process things. And so the end of the story is good, but how it started was we met a couple, probably we were there for 8 days or 7 days?
Yeah, just a week.
7 days. I think it was the second day that we were there. We met a couple and really hit it off with them. And
meeting this couple was kind of a relief because, just to back up a minute, the first day we were there, we were, kind of deer in the headlights and didn't really, we're not super outgoing people at first. We've actually gotten much better at it in the past year, but we were just kind of hanging back a little bit. And we were at the hot tub, I think it was our first night, and met this couple. They were from Canada and they were just a really nice couple. We had a lot in common. We had a similar career interests and just really enjoyed talking to this couple. And we told them that we were brand new and that was our first night. And, they were kind of joking around with us like, wow, you really have, dove in because, we were in the hot tub naked. And, we just decided to go ahead and dive in head first and see what happened. So we were sitting around the perimeter of the hot tub and the guy was sitting next to me and he had his arm around me and Mr. Jones was kind of standing up facing us and I was between the couple. And the guy just started, he didn't really do anything inappropriate, but his body language and just some of the things he was saying was kind of making me feel a little uncomfortable, but just because I had not experienced this before. And again, it was not his fault at all. It was just my lack of experience. And finally, they said, well, do you think that you're going to end up, wanting to play with other people? And we said, well, yeah, eventually. And they said, well, no time like the present.
Right.
And the guy had his arm, and he had his hand on my hip and he was kind of like, rubbing my leg and, in the back of my butt and everything. And I started panicking. And, and Mr. Jones saw that I was really, really scared, and he gracefully, bowed out of that, and that was kind of the end of it for the evening. So the next morning I was like, oh no, I don't think that I'm going to be able to handle this. This is, people are going to just move too fast, and I'm going to be afraid, and I'm going to screw everything up.
Right. And then that was the afternoon that we met.
Yeah. So then
couple.
Later that afternoon.
Right. And we were in the pool, and our paths crossed, and we started talking, and we had a lot in common. They had been married a long time.
And they had just gotten into the resort.
Right.
Mean, literally had just dropped their stuff off in their room.
Right. So we got to know them a little bit that day. I think we hooked up with them. Well, not hooked up with them. We met them the next day again at the pool, spent the day with them, getting to know them. I think we had lunch with them, and then we ended up having dinner with them. And that's when we began to realize, we were attracted to them. They were attracted to us. They were a very, very trustworthy, just a down-to-earth, solid couple, not trying to rush into anything. And their situation was a little bit different. They were really new too. And I'm not sure how to characterize where they were in the lifestyle, but they said they weren't in the lifestyle. They said they were just kind of looking for maybe one couple that they could, or
be friends with. They were looking for like a long-term, not a polyamorous relationship, but just a long-term friendship where, and they lived on the West Coast, so we were not near each other geographically at all. But, just to kind of meet somewhere for a weekend, or, occasionally go on vacation together. So they weren't really looking to find multiple couples to play with.
Right. And we were really comfortable with them. We ended up, let me see, the first time that we interacted with them
was in the playroom.
Right. Oh, right. Oh,
how could you forget? My gosh.
Yeah, we talked about that in episode 1.
Yeah.
I believe that was when the two of you ladies got together, and
I kissed a girl and I liked it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was that. So that was really, at that point in time, we were all in. This was great. Everything was wonderful. The both of us were enjoying ourselves, and it was just the two ladies at the first night, right?
Mm-hmm.
We didn't do much of anything else,
No.
I don't think. And then the next day it progressed a little. We spent the day with them again, and the next evening we went back to the playroom, right?
Yes.
And then but did we go to the beach bed that night, or the?
No, I think we were in the playroom again the second night. But the second night, you interacted with her and he interacted with me just a little bit more. It wasn't really anything, tremendously fast.
Right.
But she and I were just enjoying ourselves. It was my first experience with a woman, so I was just still trying to kind of figure it out and kind of take it all in.
Right. And so this was progressing. So our physical advances were kind of, progressing. And at this point in time, we knew that at this rate, something more than just, girl on girl was going to happen. We didn't really talk about what that looked like, but we did acknowledge that we were comfortable with them. And that's probably where we were headed, but we didn't really talk about any specifics. So that night was fine. Then the next day we played with them at the pool, right?
Yes.
The pool bed. And we did full swap. We ended up doing everything. And it was, just thinking about that particular episode, I enjoyed it. It was fun. I think, me being with her, and again, it's important to know that I initiated that. So I was with her before you were with him. And
I kind of looked over. We had talked, Mr. Jones and I had talked in our room that evening as we were getting ready for dinner, and we kind of knew that things were progressing more and more, and we both felt comfortable, and we were both kind of curious to see how we would react. And I think the other couple, they were pretty comfortable too, and they were willing to do, whatever we wanted,
right.
As much or as little as we wanted. So,
right.
That night we didn't really specifically say this is going to happen, but it just kind of evolved, and the gentleman and I looked over, and Mr. Jones and his wife were going at it, and we were like, well, and he looked at me and said, well, what are we going to do about that? And I said, well, I guess we need to reciprocate.
Right.
So,
and we had pretty much finished, and then we stopped to watch you.
Right.
And so at that point in time, considering, the topic of jealousy, there wasn't anything.
No, I mean, I enjoyed watching you with her, and
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I enjoyed. I think I was really, this was the first time. Okay, after 29 years together, I was going to see you have sex with another man. And so I watched it, and I was kind of waiting for some sort of reaction, and it didn't happen. And I'm not going to say I was super turned on, but I think that's because I was just anxious about how I was going to feel. And, you all did your thing, and then we kind of swapped back at the end, and that was, the end of it. And I think we went back to and, it was a little bit, maybe a little awkward because all four of us were kind of new, but
well, we were all like, wow, what just happened?
Yeah.
Because we really had not discussed it among the four of us.
Right. So we went back to our room and we talked about it. We said, well, how do you feel about that? And to that point in time, everything seemed to be fine. Okay. And then that led us to the next day, which is when
we got one of those awesome beach beds.
Right.
At Desire Pearl. There's like 7 really, really nice beach beds, and they're reserved for the people that have the penthouse suites. But if there aren't, if the penthouse suites aren't booked that week, then they'll, let whoever they, wants them use them. So the 4 of us got one of these awesome beds because they're so big. There was plenty of room for 4 people to lay there all day. So we did that, and we hung out. We were playing cards.
Oh yeah, we did. We played cards. We played cornhole. We were walking on the beach. We had lunch together. We were having a good time.
Yeah.
I mean, and we just figured the week would just get better and better and better. And then the 4 of us were laying on the bed, and I was on the outside, and his wife was on the outside.
No, we were both. The 2 ladies were on the inside.
Oh right. Right. Okay. And he must have had his arm around her or something.
He was like up on his elbow leaning over her.
Right. So anyway, what we're getting at is Mrs. Jones was holding his hand and kind of caressing his hand. And all of a sudden, I just felt strange. And at that point in time, I didn't even really understand what it was that I was feeling. And jealousy never really entered my mind because we had just full swapped the night before and everything was fine. And so logically, holding somebody's hand in the grand scheme of things, it never entered my mind that's what it was.
And I was holding his hand because he was telling me something, or he was telling all of us a story about his family and something that, was kind of hard to talk about with his family. And it was more of an empathetic thing that I was holding his hand while he was telling us this, because it was somewhat difficult for him to tell us this. So I wasn't, and of course I had been drinking, so I wasn't really, I could have done a better job of thinking about how that could have been perceived.
Well, yeah, but beyond that, though, you had no reason to believe that holding somebody's hand was going to cause any issues. And at that point in time, I really didn't know what was going on. I just felt kind of funny. As a matter of fact, we talked about it because my behavior changed a little bit and because I was confused. And
Mr. Jones got really quiet.
Yeah, I got quiet and I was trying to figure out what was going on. And then even the gentleman and I talked about it that afternoon because he said, well, did I do something? And I said, well, you didn't do anything and I'm not threatened by anything. And I just can't figure out what it is, but something just was bothering me and it wasn't quite right. At that point in time, though, it wasn't that big of a deal because we spent the evening with them again that night. I think we thought we were going to go into the playroom, but then it was
too crowded.
It was too crowded, and then it started raining or something.
Oh yeah, and then we went back out to the pool bed again, and it started raining on us.
Yeah, so we had fully intended, even with that little blip, we had fully intended to be with them again, and we went back to their room, and we full swapped again, right? Yeah, again, and that was at that point in time. I was able to perform. I was fine, but I guess it just started kind of, the next day after that, maybe bothered me a little bit more, but it really wasn't ruining the vacation. We were still conversing with them. It wasn't, that big of a deal. And I was still a little bit quiet.
I could tell something was off.
Yeah. Something was a little bit off but I didn't want to be like, I didn't want to ruin the party or anything. And I didn't really understand what it was that I was feeling. So we just continued on. And then the next day was it the last day that we were there, or the second to the last day?
I think by now it was. I think we're at the last day.
Yeah. So that's when we did the photo shoot together, and that was really hot. I mean, the couple that we were with paid for a photo session, and they asked Mrs. Jones to join in a part of it with the other lady, and the photographs were really awesome. And
let me just do a plug for that. I mean, if you ever get a chance to go to Desire, or even if you in your hometown, there's boudoir photographers, you can have your photos done, and they did an amazing job of making us feel comfortable.
Yeah.
I am not 19 years old anymore, and I've had 2 babies, and I'm not a Victoria's Secret model, and even though I try to take really good care of myself, I think all women have body image issues. And thinking about being naked and have somebody take your picture.
It was hot. It was hot.
It was hot.
Yeah, I mean, you two ladies.
After about 5 minutes, I totally did not worry what I looked like at all. I mean, I was just totally into it. The photographer was so professional and so good at making us feel at ease.
And he didn't have to do anything. The chemistry between the two of you, he just kind of pushed you in a certain direction, and you all just started interacting. And he was so impressed with the pictures. He was even stopping and showing us the pictures while you two ladies were together. He thought that they were really good when he was taking it. And then we went outside and did some photos outside and did some pictures with them. And then we went back to our room, and that's the first time I had an orgasm, when I started having some sort of
there was like an earthquake
seizure.
Or something.
As soon as we got you back into the room, I threw you on the bed, and I'm surprised I didn't, I was knocking your head against the wall.
You were knocking. He's not joking. He was like bashing my head up against the wall.
Yeah.
And at Desire, they don't have like headboards. It's just like the stucco wall behind there. And I didn't care. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy. So anyway, we enjoyed that time, and that was our second to the last day there. And then, the next day we flew out, and, we said goodbye to them, and we were going to keep in touch, and we had changed, swapped information and information. And so when we got home, or we got on the plane and got home, on the drive home from the airport, that's when things started like sinking in, like, okay, oh my gosh, that was quite a week. What just happened there? And we started unpacking a lot of what we were going through.
But it wasn't bad on the way home.
No, absolutely not.
It was really a few weeks later.
Well, what happened, when we got home, he started texting right away. Every day he was texting, and I started to feel like I was being pressured a little bit into this relationship. They're on the West Coast, we're on the East Coast, and so I felt like I didn't really have time to process a lot. But then it really started bothering me more when we got home. And at that point in time, I still didn't understand what it was that was bothering me. And, my behavior really didn't get any better. I was still quiet about it and still irritated when he texted and that sort of thing. And so it really was when a week or two after we got home, that it really started to kind of impact our relationship. And you knew something was wrong, and I didn't understand what it was. So to make this longer story short, I finally said one night, I think I said the word jealous to you.
I had said it to you before that. I said, I think you're jealous. And you were like, I don't get jealous. There is no way I'm jealous.
Right. And so for me, I'd never been jealous. And I always, thought jealousy was a weakness. And as a guy, I wouldn't want to admit, that I could be jealous anyway. I had never had any feelings like this before. So it was, but the more I thought about it and what it was and had time to reflect, I said, I think I might be jealous about that. And that's when we started really talking about, wow, should we be doing this?
Well, at that point I was devastated.
Right.
Because I'm like, oh my gosh, I did something to, have a negative impact on our relationship. And I thought we were doing something that was going to be fun and enhance our relationship. And I felt, guilty and confused and, very responsible for what happened.
Right. So, and then he kept texting, and then I wasn't replying, and you would reply, and that, that kind of, made it worse.
Well, it was a 4-way
Right,
text. I
right.
mean, we had the group of 4 of us set up.
Right. So at any rate, once we started talking about jealousy, and I started to realize that that's what it was, we really had a decision to make. What is this? How big is it? How big of a barrier is it? Should we not be doing this at all? Did we make a big mistake? These are the things that are going through our minds. And of course, I felt bad because I'm the one, in my mind, I'm the one causing this. But ultimately, what we decided, or what I wanted, and we've always, in 29 years, 30 years now, our relationship has been really fantastic. And for me, it was really, I think the confusing part of it was when I finally realized that whatever this perception was that I had was so far away from reality, understanding that these were two different places. And so the emotions that I felt, I kept telling myself, well, wait a minute, there's no way somebody could be after my wife. I mean, so logically, it felt so silly to even say that. I mean, 30 years being married, my relationship is not in jeopardy. There's nothing going on here. The guy lives halfway across the country.
He's madly in love with his
wife. I mean, I kept telling myself this to try to convince myself that, what I was feeling was unnecessary, and, thinking that, maybe it would go away. And really, I couldn't control what I was feeling, but acknowledging what I was feeling, and then you and I deciding that we were going to work through this was really critical at that point in time, because we've always challenged each other. We've always held each other accountable. We've always been very supportive of each other. And even though we talked about kind of backing out, I wanted to stay in it because I wanted to work through this.
Well, we had to work through it, whether we were going to back out of the lifestyle or move forward in the lifestyle. We still had stuff to work through.
Right. And when we decided to get into the lifestyle, it was a whole kind of a risk reward sort of decision. We knew that our relationship was strong enough to withstand a mistake, and that even if it was a mistake, we were going to be fine. But then when it hit home and the feeling was so strong, that's when you begin to doubt, did I do the right thing? Did I force you into this, and what's going on? So at any rate, over a period of time, in my mind, and with your help, we kind of addressed it. This is what it is. You were very reassuring. You handled it very well. And in a couple of months of thinking about it and processing it, I started to feel a whole lot better about the situation. But the thing is, though, you never really know until you go back and do it again.
So as Mr. Jones was working through it and feeling better about the situation, I was getting more and more anxious, because before we went to Desire the first time, my initial thought about potentially playing with other people is I was so afraid, because I am a big flirt. And then, when you're married for 29 years, you really don't flirt that much anymore, except with your spouse. And to re-engage in that and be allowed to do that and be encouraged to do that, it was just such a big a shift for me. I was afraid, and I remember saying to him before we went to Desire that first time, I'm afraid I'm going to make a mistake. And that I'm going to end up flirting with somebody and having a good time, and I'm going to notice you're not next to me, and I'm going to look over my shoulder, and you're going to be standing behind me with this look of horror on your face, and I'm going to have this horrible, horrible feeling of, what have I done? This is so not worth it. And when Mr. Jones ended up feeling that jealousy, and I had to watch him work through that and help him work through that. But really, I could only help. I couldn't fix it. It was his emotions in his head that he had to process and work through. So, just to watch him and help him go through that, it was really awful, because I felt responsible. And that was my biggest fear going in. So at this point, he's moving forward, and I am internally just backing up.
Right. Right. And then ultimately, though, as time went on, and it took time, it didn't happen overnight, but, I run a lot, and when I run in the morning, it gives me half an hour or an hour or sometimes longer to process things. And so over a period of time, I started to feel a whole lot better. And I didn't want to give up on the lifestyle because I still, fantasized about the things that, that we did and that I wanted to do. And so convinced you that, let's not back away now. Let's keep going. Let's give it another try. And, so we ended up, after that, well, they actually came to visit us in a few months after Desire.
And that was a source of anxiety because
Right.
that was going to be diving back in.
Right. And then they came and we had a nice visit with them. And, I actually, we soft swapped. We told them, that's right. We told them when they came that we were going to back off the full swap and go soft swap and get our heads around this. And they were really good about it. And we had a good time, and we're still friends with them. So, and they didn't do anything wrong.
No, they didn't do anything wrong.
Thing.
This was
right.
all our own issue. And,
Right.
and they knew we were new, and
Right.
and we really did our best not to drag them into our drama. And they were very, very sensitive to the fact that we were struggling, and were very accommodating. When they came in a couple months later, and we visited with them, we only did girl on girl, because I was kind of afraid to interact with him.
Right. Right.
I wasn't kind of afraid. I was terrified to interact with him. I mean, it was so bad I was having trouble making eye contact with him.
Yeah.
And again, that was my problem.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, let's get beyond this because it gets better.
Yeah, it does get better.
So that was...
this was the bottom of the valley.
Yeah, that was probably February of this year.
It was February, yeah.
So then we decided, that's when we decided, let's regroup. Let's attack this thing. Let's, and this is what we talked about in episode 1, let's go to Naughty in New Orleans. Let's plan, to go meet some people. Let's go to a party. Let's do
We had
these
another
things.
trip booked for Desire.
We had another Desire trip. Let's reset and say this is where we're going to start from here and go forward. And fortunately, the next couple that we were with, I had a business trip. We talked about this earlier, to the West Coast. We had talked with this couple before we went out, and we got out there. And the first time that we played with them, I think we were both holding our breaths as
I was scared.
Yeah, how is this going to play out? And then the long and short of it is, after that first night we were with them, I was just giddy because I enjoyed it. We did a soft swap. You were with him, and I enjoyed it. Not only did it not bother me, but I actually enjoyed that.
They were the perfect couple for us because they were both really laid back, and they both of them pretty unflappable. So I think that they sensed our anxiety, and we had told them,
right.
Our kind of our journey to that point in time. And,
right.
So they were aware of what they were kind of getting into, and they I don't want to say they handled us, but they did. They handled us perfectly.
Yeah. It was the perfect couple for us to be with. And we're still really good friends with them too. And I don't want to say the rest is history because, every time that we've played after that, it's gotten better and better. And better.
We're more relaxed about how, I think we can kind of sense how we, each other feels.
Right.
And it's just nice because we don't have to worry about that anymore. I was so worried at first about looking over at you and seeing displeasure on your face for whatever reason, whatever I would have been doing. And that just hasn't happened.
Right.
And it didn't ever happen. It was just a misperception.
Right. And ultimately now, looking back over a year ago, I mean, we are so much closer now. Our communication is on a different level. I've grown as an individual. Our relationship has grown. And, through that, and that's really how we've gone through life together, every time we hit a bump in the road, we work together, we work through it, and it makes us stronger. And in this case,
and we're very fortunate to, both of us are very careful about never pointing the finger at each other.
Right.
No matter, what part of our lives we have some sort of a challenge in, we never blame each other. We're always willing to accept responsibility, equal responsibility, because we do treat our marriage as a partnership.
Right. So it's been really good. And I am so happy that, I'm not glad it happened, but I'm happy that we worked through it the way that we did. And I think it's important to talk about because, I kept hearing, as we research the lifestyle and listen to people in the podcast world and talk to people and for the most part, people would say, well, I thought I was going to be jealous and then I wasn't. And it was hot. And I think it's important for people to know that, first of all, you don't know how you're going to react. And I can say that from personal experience. I thought I was going to react one way and I didn't. And the other thing is when it happens, to understand what it is that you're dealing with and work through it and not blame each other and not, go the other direction. And there was no drama other than, just me being confused about things. And so, just know that it's possible for something like this to happen. And I hope that, it was difficult for me at first to talk about this and, to put it out on a podcast and say, look, 30 years of marriage and, I get jealous and it causes all these problems and, why do I have these insecurities? And as a guy, that's a really hard thing to admit. So, hopefully by talking about this and sharing it with other people, will help people that when you come into that situation and you feel that way, that it's not the end of the world. As a matter of fact, you could turn it into something really positive, and that's what we did.
Well, the positive part of it that we haven't really talked about is even when we were kind of at the bottom of that valley and we were really trying to figure out our place in the lifestyle and processing the whole jealousy thing, we were having the most amazing sex between the two of us.
Yeah.
We didn't play with anybody for months after that.
Right.
But our sex life has become so much more intense.
Right.
Because I think, not that we've ever taken each other for granted, but oh my gosh.
Right.
When I thought I had hurt you and when you saw me in a different light, I think we both realized, wow, this person is so precious to me. I would never, ever do anything intentionally to, hurt him or her.
Right.
So I think our depth of emotion is just so much stronger now, and it comes out in our intimacy. Right.
Yeah. And to me, and I've had, and I mentioned the orgasm thing. I mean, and I don't know what it is. I don't know how to explain it to another guy, but there's the ejaculation part, which everybody experiences. But then, a lot of times now, I just have these convulsions, and
it goes on for a long time. I mean, I just I just hold him, and it's just it's crazy. So it's awesome.
Yeah, it is, and it's really what I've learned through this also. And people say this, but I had to learn it. The difference between separating the sex from the emotion and the intimacy in the relationship, separating those two things in my mind, especially after 29 years, was difficult for me to disentangle that from, but now that I've been able to do that, flash forward to now, the last experience every experience we have is really hot. And I just I love seeing you with another woman and another man, and it's erotic and it's all these things that I thought it was going to be. And I'm so, relieved by that. And so, hopefully, if you're out there and you're wondering about this, or if you've experienced it, know that you're not alone. Know that you can get through it. Your relationship can be stronger, and you can come out of it even closer. And it really, you hear people say that if you have a good relationship, it makes it better. The lifestyle makes it better. And if you don't have a solid relationship, it can crush it. And based on what you and I went through, I can't imagine having a weak relationship and doing that, because it would have destroyed.
It was scary enough.
A weaker relationship, no doubt.
But one thing that you cannot do, one thing that's not an option, is you can't ignore it. when you have these bumps in the road, you can't assume that it'll just kind of smooth itself over and go away.
Right.
I think you have to talk about it, or it's always going to be there.
Yeah, right. So that's, I guess that kind of tells the whole story, doesn't it?
That's the drama of me and Mrs. Jones. Yeah.
And so that was several months ago. We know that this is kind of a heavy topic, but what we promised ourselves when we got into this podcast is that we were going to be open and we were going to be honest and we were going to share exactly what was going on. And, that's what we've done. And now hopefully in the future, next episode, we can get back to something a little bit lighter. And
well, considering we're getting ready to go to like a big old New Year's Eve party in a couple weeks, I think we'll have some pretty interesting stuff to share next time.
Yeah, I think so.
I hope
too.
so.
Yeah. So, it's just really been again, the lifestyle is, I wouldn't change anything. I mean, we've grown closer. This podcast is really, kind of proof of that. I mean, here we are, sharing this with a lot of people that we don't even know, in hopes that, it'll resonate with somebody out there. And not to say it's going to happen to you. And that's how we don't ever want to come across this way. We're simply just sharing, how we've experienced this. So, anyway, that probably, wraps up segment two about jealousy. So if you, I know we'll talk about this more at the end, but if you have any thoughts or comments or questions specifically about jealousy, I'd love, to make ourselves available through email or our contact information to discuss this more, because I think this is probably the biggest fear that a lot of people have coming into this, and we have firsthand experience in it. So feel free to reach out to us.
Okay, so our Snapshots segment. So if you have not listened to our previous episodes, we like to end our show with a little talk about snapshots that we have taken away from different experiences we've had on the lifestyle. And it all started one night when we got in bed after an evening with another couple, and I looked over at Mr. Jones and I said, "So what's your snapshot of the night?" And he's like, "What are you talking about?" I said, that one mental image you take away from the night with somebody. And he hadn't really thought about that before, but I guess I did. So we talk about that now every time.
So did you think of one?
I know, I haven't thought about one yet. I was going to let you go first. And,
I know.
And,
so,
yeah.
well, we I'm drinking a glass of wine, and Mrs. Jones is drinking, there's something with the candy cane.
It's a candy cane martini.
Yeah, well...
It's the weekend before Christmas. What else should I drink?
Well, the first episode, I tried drinking beer, and that didn't work because I kept belching into the microphone. And then last time, I think I had a mixed drink, and the ice cubes were making a lot of noise. And so this time, I opted for wine, and you've got your candy cane martini. Is that what you said?
It's delicious.
So I was hoping that by the time that we got towards the end of the podcast, and you had your martini done, that you might think of a snapshot. But if you want, I'll go first.
You go first.
Okay. Well, the couple that we spent time with after Thanksgiving weekend, when they were here, we talked about that episode with them at the beginning of this podcast. We were all for interacting, and things were really hot and moving along, and all of a sudden, the lady of the other couple turned to us and said, "You know what? We want to watch you two fuck." And, that, just her saying that really, I mean, I don't know, I got goosebumps, just the thought of somebody, first of all, saying it and then wanting to watch us. And then so that when we did for them and for each other, gosh, it was just so much more charged, because I knew that she wanted to watch, or she wanted them to watch us do that. And so, again, this is maybe more of an audio snapshot, but when she just said, "You know what, we really want to watch you two fuck," that was that's my snapshot. So it was pretty hot.
Well, I think mine, kind of from that same evening, just I like being on top, and sometimes I don't communicate that well enough. And when she said that, I think we changed positions a couple times, but I really enjoyed the part where I got to be on top of you, and just looking into your eyes, knowing I had my back to them at that point. Well, I guess we had moved around, and just knowing that they were watching us, that was, it was just really, really hot. And at the same time, we were kind of really into each other because we were making eye contact as...
I think we were like porn stars at the moment.
I know, it kind of did
felt
feel
like we
that
were
way.
performing for them. So you stole mine.
Well, I just kind of piggybacked on it.
Yeah, well, it was a good one. I
was a good
can't
one.
blame you for that.
It was either that or my newest snapshot was seeing the church couple when we walked in the restaurant last night.
Do you want to talk? Oh, you already talked about that.
I did. Yeah. Ugh, that was kind of a bucket of cold water.
Yeah. So we were at our table talking about oral sex or something, and then
I had to lean over and say, Mr. Jones, we were at a booth, which was great because booths are kind of private, but the restaurant was full, and there was a party in the booth right behind us, and Mr. Jones was like really getting into his story, and he was talking kind of loud, and I had to lean over and I said, there's a couple right behind us, and he's like, oh yeah, I know.
Wow.
Then he toned it down a little bit.
Yeah. Makes sense. Maybe they'll remember their dinner.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
that's
maybe
true.
not. So that's pretty much taken us through episode 3.
Yeah.
So we had, as we prepare to close, you mentioned that we are planning to go to a New Year's party.
And we have never done this before. Like even like a vanilla New Year's party. We are more of a stay at home. Can we stay up till midnight?
Not anymore.
Or we'll go over to Mr. Jones's brother's house, and the kids will be there, and the kids will be running around, and we'll just be hanging out with friends that we've known for forever, and eating appetizers and trying to stay awake. So this is going to be really different. It's a big hotel takeover up in the city, and
I can tell you're excited because you bought about 6 dresses for this thing, didn't you?
Every lady out there knows exactly why.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
yeah.
So have you decided which one you're going to wear?
Yes. I'm wearing the shorter one, but it shows lots of cleavage, and it has an open
black one?
back. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's not super short. I just decided to go with that instead over the long gown.
Okay.
So Mr. Jones has got his tux ready to go. We're going to be styling.
Yeah. So we're really looking forward to that. So, so I'm sure we'll talk a lot about that in episode 4, and who knows what else we'll talk about by then, but we'll let you know. Another thing we wanted to add before we go is We Got a Thing has had a pretty good week, and we wanted to shout out to some people. This after 2 episodes this week, I want to thank Michael and Holly from Playboy Radio and from Swing. We met them last year at Naughty New Orleans, and we mentioned to them then that we were going to start a podcast, and Michael said, "Oh yeah, well when you start your podcast, let us know and we'll have you on the air." And I thought, he's just saying that. Well, I sent him a message, and before we know it, this past Monday
he replied instantly.
Yeah, they set up an interview with us, and so.
And he remembered who we were. I mean, Mr. Jones sent him a picture that we had taken with them, to kind of jog his memory. He said, "Of course I remember you." And
yeah, so we had an interview with them for about 15 minutes or 20 minutes on their show this past week, and that was really exciting. And then Jay from The Average Swingers, I had sent him a message asking him to kind of give us a critique, on the pod. And we had met he and Angie at Naughty in New Orleans as well.
Yep.
And he gave us some really good feedback. And then before you know it, all of a sudden on Twitter, we were picked up by Hidden Swing was tweeting out, Jim and Jen were, Life on the Swing Set, and Ending the Sexual Dark Age with JV and Shara retweeted us, and the Blissbringers retweeted us. And then all of a sudden, we started noticing the downloads, going up. And so this week, I really feel like we're becoming a part of the podcast community. Everybody has been really helpful, and we're just tickled by that, and just excited to keep doing this and having a lot of fun. So,
and a little starstruck because we just have so much respect for all of these other podcasters because they've been such a big part of our personal journey.
Right.
I mean, they have taught us, what a healthy lifestyle adventure is supposed to look like.
Right. And there's not a lot of other places to get that because swinging is not mainstream. You're not going to catch it on the Discovery Channel or, and anytime you see it on the news, it's twisted in a way where it's a little bit kind of odd. So podcasting is a way that we've kind of learned this. And so we feel, kind of honored that the group of podcasters that kind of helped form and shape, how we believe that this lifestyle should be in a healthy way have kind of embraced us and helped us along. So just want to shout out to everybody who did that. And also, I have a special shout out to GoGo, and maybe I shouldn't give her Twitter handle because I'm not sure if she'd appreciate it, but GoGo was one of our very first followers on Twitter, and I'm starting to use Twitter a lot, and I've never used it before, but I appreciate her because her tweets are so original, and they're clever, and they're unique, and they're very sincere. And what I'm learning is that that's a hard thing to do. There's a lot of retweeting that goes on, and there's a lot of, kind of surface level things. And I try to be really creative and unique, and she does the same thing. So I just wanted to say, shout out to you, GoGo, and appreciate the tweets back and forth. It's been a lot of fun. So we would really appreciate your feedback. We've gotten a couple of emails, which is good. We know that people are out there and listening. We've got one whole iTunes review. So for Christmas, if you want to get us a Christmas gift, we need about 4 more iTunes reviews before we show up on the iTunes radar. So we'd appreciate that. And any suggestions or questions based on, not just the topic tonight, but anything else that you have questions about that you might be experiencing that you want us to talk about. We have a list of things, but we certainly will prioritize future topics based on the feedback, that we get from you all. Did I miss anything there before we?
No, I think that's it.
Okay. So the best way to follow us is through our website, is wegotathing.com. And by the way, I did update our website, and I thank you to the Blissbringers because I didn't really understand that my RSS feed wasn't working. I thought I had set it up and I didn't. So we do have a way right on our website now where you can click on the little RSS icon, or you can click on the Facebook icon, or you can click on the Twitter icon right there at the top of our page and get the RSS feed directly. And then, not surprisingly, I added a page to our website of pictures, and 2 pictures there of you, Mrs. Jones, and my Google Analytics is telling me that you're the most popular page on our website. So
that's because everything else is just words.
Yeah. So I think what we're going to do is make sure that with every podcast that we put out, we're going to try to put more pictures.
Hey, maybe I can wear my Mrs. Claus outfit.
Well, that would be appropriate for December, I would think. And maybe in January we'll get, one of our New Year's Eve. Because
it is almost time for naughty stockings.
Oh, yes, it is.
Yes, we do. We have a tradition in our house, and we've had this for years. Stockings are a huge part of our family, and that we save them to the end, and we've really always gone all out on stockings for our kids and our grandkids, and my parents come, and we just have a lot of fun with them. But we have stockings that nobody else knows about, and they're naughty stockings, and we keep them upstairs in our bedroom, and you can only imagine what goes in those stockings.
Yes, that's right.
It's not what the grandkids can see pulled out of the regular stockings. So.
Yes, so that's right. I'm glad you.
Yeah, we got to get that on the calendar,
yes,
Mr. Jones. We're busy.
I know we get our guests out of the house and family gone, so we can do our naughty stockings. So So anyway, back to business. You distracted
Sorry.
me, as you often do. So wegotathing.com is going to have all of the information that I'm about to pass to you. But Twitter, you can follow us at wegotathing. We'd love to, if you want to call and leave us a voicemail, 571-367-9464 or 571-36-SWING. Or email us at wegotathing@gmail.com. As I mentioned, we're on iTunes. You just have to search We Got a Thing. We're on Stitcher. Cassidy, we do have a link to Cassidy on our wegotathing.com website. And we're not really endorsing Cassidy, but we are members of Cassidy and SLS. And Cassidy has been just the site that we enjoy using the most. It's user-friendly. And so we just really like Cassidy. So you'll see a link to Cassidy from our website. And if you decide that you want to give Cassidy a try through our website, you'll get 3 free months, I believe, with your paid subscription. So you'll see that on there. You'll also see that there's a link, as I mentioned, to our Facebook page. And now that I actually have a link to the Facebook page on our We Got a Thing, hopefully people can find us there. And I'm going to try my best to keep all of our social media sites going, Twitter on a daily basis, and the rest of them, maybe once a week or so. So if you've forgotten any of that, just go to We Got a Thing. Everything that I just told you is there. You'll have the show notes for today. You'll have hyperlinks to everything that we talked about and discussed. So again, thanks for coming back. We appreciate you listeners and the feedback that we're getting. So thanks.
And enjoy your holiday season. If you're listening to this, I know that it's been a really busy time of year, and sometimes we get caught up in all the busyness. We forget to remember how blessed we are, to not only have, an amazing partner in life, but, family, friends, health, all that. We just sometimes take it for granted.
Right. So anyway, thanks for listening. We are Mr. and Mrs. Jones, and we got a thing.
What's your thing?
Oh, I do the opening.